Aye, they do, he agreed, his pale blue eyes gleaming. From time to time. And then the 1% take all their privilege back from them, and usually their pride and dignity for good measure, and they go back to being the slaves they're born to be. You know, I sighed, returning his stare. It's not just that I disagree with what you're saying, it's that I actually despise it. That's the beauty of it, he cried, slapping his thighs with both palms. He read my mystified frown for a moment, and then continued in a softer tone. Look, me ma, she died when I was just a baby. Dad tried his best, but he couldn't manage. There was 5 of us kids, all under 10 years old, and he was a sick man. He sent us to these orphanages. We were Protestants. The girls went to Protestant places, but me little brother and me, there was no place for us, and we ended up with the Catholics. He paused for a while, allowing his gaze to fall to his feet. The rain squalled again, striking the plastic awning of the chai shop with the sound of drummers at a wedding. His foot began to scrape away at the earth slowly, his running shoe leaving a pattern of scrolls and whorls in the muddy ground. There was this priest, you see. He looked up. Fractal patterns in the irises of his ice-blue eyes glittered around the pinpoint pupils. The whites of his eyes were suddenly red, as if burned by the sea. I don't talk about this, he said, lapsing into a leaden silence again. His eyes filled with tears. He clenched his jaw, swallowing hard, and willing the tears away. But they fell, and he turned his head. You're a fucking cunt, you are. Concannon snapped, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Me? Yeah, fucking you. This is what all your nice reasonableness does to people. You turn 'em into weak cunts. That's the first time I've let a tear fall in many a long year, and it's the first time I've talked about that fucking priest in longer still. And that's why we'd be so good together, don't you see? Not really. I got out of that orphanage when I was 16. By my 18th birthday I'd killed 6 men. One of them was that fucking priest. Shoulda seen how he begged for his life, the miserable sick thing. He paused again, his mouth pressed into a bitter wrinkle. I was hoping that he'd stop talking. He didn't. I forgave him, you know, before I killed him. Concannon, will you not hear me out, man? He seemed desperate. All right. I never forgave anyone. After that, he began, brightening with violent recollection. I was a full-ranked volunteer with the UVF, and I went on breaking heads, shooting Catholics in the knees, sending pieces of the IRA cunts we captured to their widows, and a lot more. We worked together with the cops and the army. Unofficial like, of course, but we had a fucking green light. Hit squads, killin' and maimin' on demand, no questions asked. Concannon. Then it all fell apart. It got too hot. I got too hot. Too violent, they said. It was a fucking war. How can you be too violent for a war? But they sent me out. Scotland first, then London. I fucking hated the place. Then I went on the road and ended up here. Look, Concannon. I know, he said quickly. I know what you're thinking and I know what you're gonna say. And it's true. I can't deny it. I like hurtin' people who deserve it. I'm a twisted cunt. Lucky for me, there's a lot of twisted girls out there, so I'm happy being twisted. But you're not like that. You have your principles. Don't you get it? You're the talk softly, and I'm the big stick. You look 'em in the eyes, do business with 'em, and shake their hands. I chop their hands off if they disobey. Chopping people's hands off. There's a leap forward. I've given it a lot of thought, he said alarmingly. That's why I've been trying to pull you away from that French mincer. You just don't know when to quit, do you? No, wait, hear me out. It's like, if you strip a religion down to its most basic parts, the parts that make it work so well and last for hundreds and hundreds of years, it boils down to this. Nice words and the fear of horrible punishments that never end. You and me, you can't beat a combination like that. Popes and heathen mullahs have got fat on it for centuries. I let out a long sigh and put my palms on my knees, preparing to stand. He reached out to put a hand on my wrist. The grip of his hard fingers was fierce, and there was enormous strength in it. That's not advised, I said. He released his grip on my arm. Sorry, just think about it, he said, the grin leaning in through the doorway of his eyes again. I'll talk to you in a few days. We won't be alone in this, if you throw in with me. I'm already talking with others, and there's plenty of them that's interested, make no mistake. Think about it. That's not too much to ask for saving your talk softly ass today, is it? I'd like to have you in this with me. I'll need someone to talk to. Someone I trust. Just think about it, that's all I ask. I rode away, leaving him standing there under the blue plastic awning. I didn't think about his offer, but I did think about him that afternoon, as I made the rounds of cafes and bars we used as passport drops. I talked with my contacts. I listened to gangster street music, gossip, slander, lies and denunciation. Always funny. But in every idle moment my thoughts returned to Concannon, and to those tears he resented so bitterly, but failed to stop. What dream, what hope, what despair drives us to the things we do, just to desert us when the deed is done? What hollow things are they, motive and reason, born at night to fade so quickly in the sunlight of consequence? What we do in life lives on inside us, long after ambition and fear lie frosted and opaqued on forgotten shores. What we do in life, more than what we think or say, is what we are. Concannon was running into crime, and I was already running away from it. For too long I'd done things because the fear of capture became a mirror, a face in the water, not really me, and I absolved myself of my own sins. But the waters were stirred, and the face I'd always put on the things that I did was blurred and vanishing. Chapter 17. I waited for Lisa outside the Mahesh Hotel, enjoying the city. It had rained intermittently but heavily through the afternoon, yet the early evening air was hot and dry beneath the brooding sky. Occasional waves struck at the low seawall, crashing up and over to splash across half the wide street. Children courted the waves, running from spray to spray, while couples skipped away. Hopeful carriage drivers slowed beside the strollers, trying to entice them into their rickety, high-wheeled carts. Peanut sellers wandered among the walkers, fanning the glowing coals they carried in baskets around their necks. Smoke from the little fires, filled with the flavor of roasted peanuts, drifted among the strollers, temptation turning their heads. The whole city, washed clean by the heavy rains, was more fragrant than usual. The cloud-soaked sky locked in scents of food cooking on hundreds of small street stalls, bel puri, pav bhaji, pakodas, and sweet pungencies from pawn sellers, incense traders, and the frangipani garlands being sold at every traffic signal. I counted thoughts on perfumed strands, and then I heard her voice. "A penny," Lisa said. I turned. "They don't make pennies anymore," I said, pulling her close to me and kissing her. "Are you forgetting this is Bombay?" she asked, not resisting me. "People get arrested for kissing in public. Maybe they'll put us in the same prison cell," I suggested, holding her close. "I don't think so," she laughed. "Then I'll escape, and come bust you out. And then what? And then I'll bring you back here, on an evening just like this, and kiss you again, just like this." "Wait a minute," she said, studying my face. "You've been fighting again. Are you kidding? Come off it. You're trying to distract me. That's a dirty trick, Buster." "What? Jesus, Lynn. Fighting again? What the fuck?" "Lisa, it's cool. I'm fine. And I'm right here, with you." I kissed her face. "We better go," she said, as she frowned out of the kiss, "or we'll miss him." "Miss who?" "Miss whom? Ryder," she said. "You'll find out, soon enough." She led me on the short walk from the seafront to the promenade that surrounded the nearby Air India building. The offices were closed, but the dim night lights in the ground floor reception area revealed the desks and doorways within. When we reached a locked glass door, close to the back of the building, Lisa signaled me to wait. She glanced around nervously at the wedge of street we could see from the rear door, but there was no one in sight. "So, what are we?" "We're waiting," she interrupted me. "Waiting, for?" "For him." There was a flicker of light within the building. A security guard carrying a torch approached the door. He opened it with a key on a heavy chain, and held the door open for us. He urged us to enter quickly, and then locked the door again behind us. "This way," he said. "Follow me closely." Weaving his way along a series of corridors and between rows of silent desks, he brought us to a service elevator at the rear of the building. "Emergency lift," he said, smiling happily. "After stop at top, walk 2 floors to roof. My bonus, please." Lisa handed him a roll of notes. The guard saluted us, pressed the button to open the doors of the elevator, and waved us inside. "So, we're gonna rob the Air India Company," I said as we ascended in the lift. "And 10 minutes ago, you were worried about a public kiss." I wasn't worried, she laughed. And we're not here to rob the place. We're here for a private party. The doors opened on a storage floor, with walls of filing cabinets and open shelves stacked with dusty folders. Ah, the Kafka room. Can't wait to see the menu. Come on, Lisa said, rushing to the stairwell. We have to hurry. Taking the steps 2 at a time, she led me up the stairs. At the top she hesitated, with her hand on the emergency release bar of the closed door. I hope he remembered to leave this door unlocked, she said breathlessly, and then pushed on the bar. We stepped through onto the roof of the building. It was a vast area, with several small metal huts on the periphery. A huge structure towered 10 meters over us, braced by heavy steel girders. It was the illuminated logo of the Air India Company, a stylized archer, with a drawn bow, circled by a great disc. The gigantic figure rose from a central support pylon, fixed to a rotating steel table, which was in turn supported by an array of girders and cables. Like every other Mumbaiker, I'd seen the huge sign rotating above the Air India building hundreds of times, but standing so close to it, so high above the rolling sea, was a different truth. Damn, we made it in time, Lisa grinned. There's a bad time for this? What a view. Wait, she said, staring up at the archer. Wait. There was a whirring, grinding sound, as if a generator had started up nearby. The throb of an electric turbine began, building from a soft purr to a persistent whine. Then the click and stutter of a condenser, or several of them, chattered from somewhere very close, at the base of the immense sign. Suddenly, in one burst of flickering crimson color, the great circular logo lit up, bathing the whole space in blood-red light. Moments later, the crimson archer began to rotate on its pylon axis. Lisa was dancing little excited steps, her arms wide. Isn't it great? She was laughing happily. It's brilliant. I love it. We watched the huge wheel of scarlet light turn for some time, and then shifted to face the open sea. The clouds had swollen together to fill the whole of heaven with black brooding. Distant lightning strikes forked through the darkness. Ribs of cloud, rolling and shifting on the bed of night. You like it? She asked, leaning in beside me as we watched the sky and sea. I love it. How'd you come up with it? I was here a couple weeks ago with Rish, from the gallery. He was thinking about making a full-size copy of the Air India Archer for a new Bombay exhibition, and he invited me to come take a look. When we got here, he changed his mind. But I liked it so much up here that I cultivated the guard, and bribed him to let us come up here, you and me. You cultivated the guard, huh? I'm a cultivated girl. For a time we gazed at the rejoicing sea, far below. It was a dangerous view, irresistible, but my thoughts slithered back to that afternoon, and Concannon. Did you meet a tall Irishman named Concannon, a while back? She thought for a moment, one of my favorite frowns curling her upper lip. Fergus? Is that his name? I only know him as Concannon, I said. But you can't miss this guy. Tall, heavy-set, but athletic, kinda rangy, a boxer, with sandy hair and a hard eye. He said he met you at an exhibition. Yeah, Fergus, that's his name. I only spoke to him for a while. Why? Nothing. I was just wondering why he was at the exhibition. I don't figure him for an art lover. We had lots of men at that show, she said thoughtfully. It was our most successful show so far. The kind of show that brings people who don't normally go to galleries. What kind of a show? It was all about the broken lives that spin out from bad or troubled relationships between fathers and sons. It was called Sons of the Fathers. There was a big piece about it in the paper. Ranjit gave us great coverage. It pulled in a crowd. I told you all about it. Don't you remember? No, I replied. I've been in Goa, Lisa, and you didn't tell me about it. Really? I was sure I did. Funny, huh? Not really. Sons of the Fathers. Was it that phrase, those words, sons, fathers, glimpsed on a poster that had drawn Concannon to the exhibition? Or had he followed me, and then followed Lisa to the gallery, using the show as a pretext to meet her and talk to her? Acid memories had burned his eyes when he spoke to me. I had memories of my own. I woke too often still chained to a wall of the past, being tortured by the ghosts of men whose faces I'd already begun to forget. I turned my head to look at Lisa's gentle profile, the deep-set, hooded eyes, the fine, small nose, the sculpted flow of her long, graceful chin, the half-smile that almost always played in the stream of her lips. The wind was picking up, lifting the blonde curls of her hair into a feathered halo. She was wearing a loose, knee-length black dress with a high, stiff collar, but no sleeves or shoulders. She'd kicked off her sandals, and her feet were bare. The only jewelry she wore was a thin necklace of irregular turquoise beads. She read my face, frowning a little, as she made her way back into my mind. "Do you know what today is?" she asked, laughing as my eyes widened with alarm. "It's our anniversary. But we got together in. I'm talking about the day I let myself love you," she said, her smile showing how much she was enjoying my confusion. "This is exactly the day, 2 years ago, that you stopped your bike beside me on the causeway, a week after Carla got married, when I was waiting for the rain to stop. I was hoping you forgot that. I was pretty high, that day." "You were," she agreed, the smile filling her eyes. "You saw me standing with a bunch of people under the shelter of a shop. You pulled up, and asked me if I wanted a ride. But the rain was pouring down like mad. It was the start of a flood, a big one. I was worried that you might not make it home. Pouring in buckets, it was. And there's you, sitting on your bike in the rain, soaked through to your bones, offering me, dry and comfortable, a ride home." I laughed so hard. Okay. Then you got off your bike and started to dance, right there in front of the whole crowd." "So stupid. Don't say that. I loved it." "So stupid," I repeated, shaking my head. "I think you should make a promise to the universe that you'll always dance in the rain, at least once, if you're in Bombay during monsoon." "I don't know about the universe, but I'll make a pact with you. I hereby promise that I'll always dance in the rain at least once, in every one of my monsoons." The storm was coming in fast. Lightning shocked the theater of the sea. Heartbeats later, the first thunder smashed the clouds. "That's a big storm coming in. Come here," she said, taking my hand. She led me to an open space beneath the slowly turning wheel of the Crimson Archer. Ducking into an alcove, she fetched a basket and brought it out. "I paid the watchman to leave it up here for us," she explained, opening the basket to reveal a large blanket, a bottle of champagne, and a few glasses. She handed me the bottle. "Open us up, Lynn." While I peeled away the foil wrapper and twisted the wire tether, she spread out the blanket, holding it in place against the gathering wind with spare tiles she found on the roof. "You really thought this out," I said, popping the cork on the champagne. "You don't know the half of it," she laughed. "But this is a special place. When I came up here with Rish, I took a damn good look around. This is one of the only open spaces in Bombay, maybe the only space, where nobody can see you from any window, anywhere." She pulled her dress up over her head, and tossed it aside. She was naked. She picked up the glasses and held them out. I filled them. I put the bottle aside, and held my glass close to hers for a toast. "What shall we drink to? How about getting your goddamn clothes off?" "Lisa," I said, as serious as the storm. "We've gotta talk." "Yeah, we do," she said. "After we drink. I'll make the toast." "Okay. To fools in love. To fools in love." She drank her glass down quickly, and then threw it over her shoulder. It shattered against a stone buttress. "I've always wanted to do that," she said happily. "You know, we should talk about." "No," she said. She unfastened my clothes and pulled them off. When we were both naked, she picked up another glass and refilled it. "One more toast," she said, "then we talk." "Okay. To the rain," I suggested. "Inside and out." "To the rain," she agreed. "Inside and out." We drank. "Lisa, no one more drink. You said." "The last one didn't do it." "Didn't do what?" "Didn't wake the Dutchman." She filled the glasses again. "No toast this time," she said, drinking half her glass. Bottoms up. We drank. A second glass shattered in the shadows. She pushed me back onto the tethered blanket, but slipped away again, her body on the sky. "Do you mind if I dance while we talk?" she said, beginning to sway, the wind happy in her hair. "I'll try not to object," I said, lying back to watch her, my hands clasped behind my head. "This is another anniversary, of sorts," she said dreamily. "You know, there's a special place in hell for people who never forget birthdays or anniversaries. This is one that starts tonight, 2 years after the other one started." "The other one?" "Yes." She danced, twirling in a circle, her arms woven in the wind. "The other us, that we used to be." "That we used to be?" "That we used to be." And when did we change? Tonight. We did? Yes. In the elevator, or on the stairs. She laughed and danced, her head moving to a beat only her arms and hips and legs could hear. I'm doing a rain dance, she said, her hands already swimming through water. It has to rain tonight. I glanced up at the immense disk of the Archer, rotating slowly, chained to the rock of the city with steel cables. Rain. Rain means lightning. The red Archer looked like a very tempting lightning rod. It has to rain? Oh, yeah, she said, flopping at my feet and staring at me, her body supported on one arm. And it will now, soon. She picked up the champagne bottle, took a mouthful and kissed me, trickling the wine into my mouth in the bruised blossom of a kiss. Our lips parted. I want to have an open relationship, she said. It can't get much more open than this, I smiled. I want to be with other people. Oh, that kind of open. I think you should be with other people, too. Not all the time, of course. Not if we stay together. I don't think I'd like to see you in a permanent thing. But definitely sometimes. I could actually hook you up. I've got a friend who's really hot for you. She's so cute that I wouldn't mind doing a threesome. What? It would only take a word, she said, staring into my eyes. The storm was close. The wind smelled of the sea. I lifted my eyes to the sky. Pride has most of the anger, and humility most of the right. I didn't have the right to tell her what to do, or what not to do. I didn't even have the right to ask her. We didn't have that kind of love. I don't have the right. I want to be with you, if you want to love me, she said, lying beside me, her hand on my chest. But I want us to be with other people as well. You know, Lisa, you picked a pretty weird way to tell me this. Is there a way that isn't weird? Still, I didn't know how you'd react, she pouted. I still don't know. I thought, if you don't like it, this'll be the last time we make love. And if you do like it, this'll be the first time we make love as the newest, free to be what we want. Either way, it's a memorable anniversary. We looked at one another. Our eyes began to smile. You knew I'd completely love this stunt, didn't you? Totally. The whole Air India Archer thing. Totally. I leaned over her, smoothing the wind-strewn hair from her face. You're an amazing girl, Lisa. And I'm constantly amazed. She kissed me, her fingers vines around my neck. You know, she murmured, I did some research. You did? Yeah, on how often this place gets hit by lightning. Do you want to know? I didn't care. I knew what was happening to us, but I didn't know where we were going. The storm was on us. The sky connected. Rain filled our mouths with silver. She pulled me into her, locked her feet in the small of my back, and held me inside, tight, loose, and tight again, daring me to follow. A waterfall of wind and rain drummed on my back. I put my forehead to hers, sheltering her face with mine, our eyes only lashes apart. The monsoon, flesh warm, poured from my head and splashed up from the ground. We pressed our mouths together, breathing into one another, sharing air. She rolled me over onto my back, holding me inside her, flattening her long fingers across my chest, her arms stiff. A roar of thunder smashed new rain from sodden clouds. Water poured in rivulets from her hair and her breasts, running into my open mouth. Water began to fill the roof of the building, ebbing around us in a secret sea, high above the island city. Her fingers clawed. Her back arched, cat fierce. She slid her hands from my chest, down along my body. Sitting upright, she locked me inside, and turned her face to the sky, her arms out wide. A drum began to beat. A heavy footstep in a hall of memory, my heart. We were breaking apart. In that instant it was clear. What we had was all we ever were, or could be. Lightning painted the water around us on the roof. They turned above my head, Lisa and the storm and the wheel of fate, and the whole world was red, blood red, even to that sea the sky. Part 4. Chapter 18. Ruling a criminal enterprise requires an instinct for fear, a flair for ruthless caprice, and a talent for herding your men into that lush minion pasture between awe and envy. Running a criminal enterprise, on the other hand, is all hard work. I woke early after the night of the Red Archer, feeling that an arrow had passed through me, leaving a red emptiness inside. I was at my desk in the passport factory before 9. 3 hours of detailed work with Krishna and Vilu brought my counterfeit passports up to date. After a call to my contact at the Bombay Municipal Corporation, asking him to deliver copies of The permit documents for Farzad's treasure hunting family. I headed to the Colaba Causeway for a working lunch. Most of the 5, 4 and 3-star hotels in South Bombay were within a 3-kilometer radius of the Gateway of India monument. 90% of Bombay's tourists could be found within the same arc of the peninsula, along with 95% of the illegal passport trade, and 85% of the drug trafficking. Most businesses in the south paid protection money, called hafta, meaning a week, to the Sanjay Company. The company exempted the owners of 7 restaurants and bars in the same area. The owners of those bars allowed touts, pimps, tourist guides, pickpockets, drug dealers and black market traders connected with the Sanjay Company to use their premises as convenient drop-off points for goods, documents and information. My passport forgery and counterfeiting unit had to monitor those 7 drop-off centers for usable documents. For the most part, that job fell to me. To keep enemies and potential rivals guessing, I changed the order of the bars and restaurants every day, rotating between them often enough to confuse any sense of routine. I started, on that day, at the Trafalgar restaurant, only a good knife's throw from Lightning Dilip's desk in the Colaba police station. At the door of the corner-facing restaurant, below the 3 steep steps leading inside, I paused to shake hands with a memory man named Hrishikesh. Memory men were a criminal subcaste in those years. Men who lacked the foolhardiness to risk prison time by actually committing crimes, but whose intelligence and prodigious memories allowed them to make a modest living, serving the fearless fools who did. Taking up positions in high criminal traffic areas, such as the Causeway, they made it their business to know the latest figures for the day's gold prices, the current black and white market exchange rates for 6 major currencies, the carat price for white diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires, and half-hour fluctuations in the price of every illicit drug, from cannabis to cocaine. "What's up, Kesh?" I asked, shaking his hand. "No problem, Baba," he grinned, raising his eyes to the sky for a moment. Uparwale. The word he'd used was a reference to God, and one of my favorites. More often used in the singular, Uparwala, it could be roughly translated as the person upstairs. Used in the plural, the term meant the people upstairs. "Uparwale," I replied. "Let's go." "Okay," he said, becoming serious as he launched into his iterations of the latest prices and rates. I only needed the gold and currency exchange rates, but I let Kesh run through the whole of his repertoire. I liked him, and admired the subtle genius that allowed him to hold hundreds of facts in his current memory, adjusting them as often as 3 times in a single day, without a decimal point of error. Most gangsters held fringe dwellers like Kesh in contempt. I never understood it. The small-scale street outlaws were harmless people, surviving through cleverness and adapted skills in a hostile environment that sometimes didn't treat them well. I also had a soft spot for independent outlaws, men and women who refused to join the ranks of law-abiding citizens, no less resolutely than they rejected the violence of hardcore criminals. When his recitation ended, I paid him twice the going rate for a memory man's mantra, and he gave me a smile like sunlight streaming off the sea. Inside the restaurant I sat with my back to a wall. I had a clear view of the street. A waiter nudged my shoulder with his belly. I ordered a vegetable sandwich and a coffee. I didn't have to signal anyone. I only had to wait. I knew that the information network of the street was already at work. One or more of the endlessly drifting street guys roaming the tourist beat would have seen me park my motorcycle, talk with Kesh, and enter the restaurant. Word would already be spreading through neighboring lanes and dens. Linbaba is sitting at Trafalgar. Before I finished my sandwich, the first contact arrived. It was Billy Basu. Hesitating close to my table, he glanced around nervously and spoke very softly. "Hello, Mr. Lin. My name is Billy Basu. I am working with Dennis, the sleeping Baba. You might be remembering me? Sit down. You're making the boss nervous." He glanced at the restaurant boss, leaning on the counter, his hand playing in the trays of change as if they were pebbles in a stream. Billy Basu sat down. A waiter appeared immediately, slapping a grimy vinyl menu booklet in front of Billy. The rules in all the drop-off bars and restaurants were simple. No fighting or disturbances that might upset the civilians, and everyone buys lunch, whether they eat it or not. I ordered tea and a takeaway sandwich parcel for Billy. When the waiter left us, Billy came to the point quickly. "I have a chain," he said, reaching into his pocket. "Solid gold it is, with a picture locket attached." He put the gold locket and chain on the table. I picked it up, running my thumb over the links of the chain, and then prized open the locket. I found two photographs. A young man and a young woman, facing each other and smiling happily across the hinge of their little world. A world that had found its way into my hand. I don't take stolen goods, Billy. What stolen, Baba? He demanded indignantly. This was a trade, a fair trade, the locket for dope. And good quality, almost 50% pure. All square and fair. I looked at the photographs of the young couple again. They were Northern Europeans, bright-eyed and healthy, from the kind of social background that put perfect teeth in untroubled smiles. They looked about 20 years old. How much do you want? Oh, Baba, he grinned, beginning the Indian bargaining ritual. That is for you to say, not me. I'll give you $5 American. But, he spluttered, it's much too less, for such a piece. You said it was for me to say. Yes, Baba, but it is for you to say a fair price. I'll give you 60% of the gram weight price. Do you agree it's 18-karat gold? It's maybe 22 carats, Baba. No, it's 18, 60%. Or try your luck with the Marwaris, at Zaveri Bazaar. Oh, no, Baba, he said quickly. If I deal with the Marwaris, I'll end up owing them money. They're too smart. I'd rather deal with you. No offense. None taken. 50%. Done at 60. I called the waiter, passed him the locket and chain, and told him to ask the manager to weigh it on his jewelry scale. The waiter slouched over to a desk, and handed over the chain. Using a fine scale that he kept under the counter, the manager weighed the locket and chain, wrote the gram weight on a piece of paper, and handed them back to the waiter. The waiter passed the paper to me, hefted the chain and locket in the bowl of his hand for a moment as if checking the accuracy of the scale, and then dropped them into my upturned palm. I glanced at the figure on the paper, and then showed it to Billy Basu. He nodded. Using Kesha's figure for the current rate, I rounded the amount to the nearest 10 rupees, and wrote the figure on the same sheet of paper, showing it to Billy. He nodded again. You know, Baba, he said, as he put away the money, I saw that Naveen Adair before, that Anglo detective fellow. He gave me a message, if I see you in any place today. As it happens, I'm in any place right now. Yes, he replied earnestly. So, I can give you his message. There was a pause. Would you like another sandwich parcel, Billy? Actually, yes, Linbaba. Jamal is waiting outside. I waved for another parcel. Are we good for the message, now? Oh, yes. Naveen said, let me be exactly sure. Tell Linbaba, if you see him, that I have nothing new about the man in the suit. That's it? That's the message? Yes, Baba. It's important, no? Critical. Let me ask you something, Billy. Yes, Baba? If I didn't buy your chain, were you gonna give me the message? Of course, Baba, he grinned, but for more than just 2 sandwiches. The sandwich parcels arrived. Billy Basu put his hand on them. So now, I'll take my leave? Sure. When he left the restaurant, I looked again at the photographs of the smiling young couple. I closed the locket, and dropped it into my shirt pocket. For the next 4 hours, I worked my way through the other 6 drop-off restaurants and bars in my district, spending about 40 minutes in each one. It was an average day. I bought a passport, 3 pieces of jewelry, $750 in cash, an assortment of other currencies, and a fine watch. That last item, in the last trade of the day, in the last of the bars, involved me in an angry dispute with 2 of the street guys. The man who brought the watch to me, Deepak, settled the price quickly. It was a price far below the actual value of the watch, but far more than he could expect to receive from the professional buyers in the Fort area. At the moment of the handover, a second man, Ishtiak, entered the bar, shouting for a share of the money. Ishtiak's strategy was simple. Make a big enough fuss to force a concession from Deepak, before the latter had the chance to slip away in the crowded street. In other circumstances I'd have taken my money back, shoved both men out of the bar, and forgotten about them. My long-standing relationship with the bar's owner was more important than any one transaction. But when I'd put the watch to my ear, I'd heard the reassuring trip-click movement, twitching toward its rundown cycle. The mechanical heart beating its rhythm reward for the daily winding fidelity of its owner. It was, as it happened, my favorite watch. Ignoring my instincts, I tried to placate Ishtiak. The momentary weakness ignited impudence, and he shouted all the harder. Diners at other tables began to stare at us, and it wasn't a big place. Speaking quickly, I soothed Ishtiak, pulled some money from my pocket and paid him off. He snatched at the notes, snarled at Deepak, and left the bar. Deepak gave me an apologetic shrug and slipped out onto the street. I slid the metal bracelet of the watch over my hand, onto my wrist. I snapped the catch shut. It was a perfect fit. Then I looked up to see the manager and his waiters staring at me. The short story written in their eyes was clear. I'd lost face. Men in my position didn't placate street touts like Ishtiak. I glanced again at the watch on my wrist. My greed had weakened me. Greed is human kryptonite, Carla once said to me, as she pocketed all of the commission we just made together on a deal. I needed to work out, and swung the bike through traffic, heading for the Mafia boxing gym at Ballard Pier. The manager of the gym, Hussein, was a veteran gangster who'd lost an arm to a machete blow in a battle with another gang. His long, scarred face found its way into a biblical beard that rested on the prodigious mound of his chest. He was brave, kind, funny, tough, and a match for any of the young gangsters who trained at the gym. Every time I looked into his laughing, dangerous eyes, I wondered what he and Qadrbhai must have been like. The young fighters who created a gang that became a mafia company. Let my enemy see the tiger, they used to say, before he dies. There was no doubt that Hussein and Qadrbhai had shown the tiger many times, as they'd prowled the city, young and fearless, all those years before. And something of that striped menace lingered in the burnt clay eyes of the gym master. "Wah, wah, Linbaba," he said, as I entered the gym. "Salam alaikum." "Wa alaikum salam, one Hussein." Because another Hussein joined Qadrbhai in those early years, and went on to hold a position on the council. They were sometimes known as one Hussein and two Hussein, for the number of arms they possessed. "Kya hal hain? How are you going?" "Busier than a one-armed man in a bar fight," I replied in Hindi. It was an old joke between us, but he laughed every time. "How are you, one Hussein bhai?" "Still swinging the punches, Linbaba. If you keep punching, you stay hard. If you stop the windmill, there's no flour." "You got that right. Are you training full session, Lin?" "No, one Hussein bhai, just loading the guns." Loading the guns was gangster slang for a workout that pumped the biceps and triceps in the same session of supersets. "Damn good," he laughed. "Keep the guns loaded, yar. You know the two rules of combat. Make sure they know they've been hit, and make sure they stay hit." I finished for him. "Juror." He handed me a towel as I walked past into the main training room. The gym, which at first had been a small, dirty space where large, dirty gangsters learned the arts of street fighting, had proven so popular with the young men of the Sanjay Company that it had been expanded to include the whole of the neighboring warehouse. In the foreground there was an assortment of weight training equipment: benches, lat and rowing machines, incline and decline presses, squat bars, chin-up and dip bars, and stacks of heavy plates and dumbbells. Beyond that area, lined with mirrors, was the blood-stained boxing ring. Further into the newly created space was a wrestling and judo mat. Lining the far wall were heavy body bags and suspended speedballs. In the corner leading back toward the entrance was a corridor, 2 men wide, formed with vinyl-padded walls. The corridor was the training space for knife fighting. It was hot in the gym. Grunts, moans and shouts of pain pierced humid air that was sweating adrenaline and that high, scrape-bone smell of testosterone. I've spent a large part of my life in the company of men. 10 years of my life in prisons, 7 years in gangs, 20 years in gyms, karate schools, boxing clubs, rugby teams, motorcycle groups, and all my growing years in a boys' school. More than half of my life in exclusively male societies. And I've always felt comfortable there. It's a simple world. You only need one key to every locked heart: confidence. Nodding to the other young men in the weight training area, I took the long knife scabbards from their tucks in the back of my jeans, and folded them with my money, keys, the watch and my shirt on a wide wooden stool. Strapping on a thick leather weight belt, I slapped the towel on an empty bench, and began my alternate sets of reclining tricep extensions and standing bicep curls. After 30 minutes, my arms were at the peak of their pump. I collected my things, and made my way to the knife training corridor. In those years before every handbag thief carried a gun, the techniques of knife fighting were a serious business. The masters who taught their knife skills were cult heroes for young gangsters, and treated with as much deference as members of the Sanjay Council themselves. Hathoda, the man who'd taught me for 2 years, had also taught Ishmeet, the leader of the cycle killers, who'd passed on the skills to his own men. The knife master was just leaving the corridor with a young street fighter named Tricky as I approached. They both greeted me with smiles and warm handshakes. The young gangster, exhausted but happy, excused himself quickly and headed for the shower. "A good kid," Hathoda said in Hindi as we watched him leave. "And a natural with the knife, may he never use it in shame." The last phrase was a kind of incantation that Hathoda taught his students. I repeated it instinctively, as we all did, in the plural. May we never use it in shame. Hathoda was a Sikh, from the holy city of Amritsar. As a young man, he'd fallen in with a tough crowd. Eventually, he'd abandoned his studies, and spent almost all of his time with the local gang. When a violent robbery led to conflict with community leaders, Hathoda's family disowned him. As part of the price of peace, his gang had been compelled to cast him out as well. Alone and penniless, he made his way to Bombay, and was recruited by Kadirbai. He apprenticed the young Sikh to Ganeshbai, the last of the master knife fighters who'd started with Kadirbai in the early 1960s. Hathoda never left the master's side, and through years of study became a master himself. He was, in fact, the last knife teacher in South Bombay, but none of us knew that then, in those years before the glamour of the gun. He was a tall man, something of a disadvantage for a knife fighter, with a thick mane of oiled hair coiled into a permanent topknot. His almond-shaped eyes, the same Punjabi eyes that with a single, smoldering stare, had seduced travelers to India for centuries, glowed with fearlessness and honor. His name, the one that everyone in South Bombay knew him by, Hathoda, meant hammer in Hindi. "So, Lin, you want to practice with me? I was just leaving, but I'm happy to stay for another session, if your reflexes are up to it." "I don't want to put you out, Master G," I demurred. "It's no trouble," he insisted. "I'll just drink water, and we'll begin." "I'll train with him," a voice from behind me said, speaking in Hindi. "The Gora can work out with me." It was Andrew De Silva, the young Goan member of the Sanjay Company Council. His use of the term Gora, meaning white man, though very common in Bombay, was insulting in the context. He knew it, of course, and leered at me, his mouth open and his lower jaw thrust out. It was also a strange thing to say. Andrew was very fair-skinned, his part Portuguese ancestry evident in his reddish-brown hair and honey-colored eyes. Because I spent so much time riding my motorcycle in the sunlight, without a helmet, my face and arms were darker than his. "That is," Andrew added, when I didn't respond, "if the Gora isn't afraid that I might embarrass him." It was the right moment, on the wrong day. "What level do you want?" I asked, returning his stare. "Level 4, Andrew said, his leer widening. 4 it is," I agreed. All training in the knife-fighting arts was done with hammer handles, the reason for Hathoda's enduring nickname. The wooden handles, without their hammerheads, approximated the hilt and heft of a knife, and could be used for practice, without causing the grievous injuries of real knives. Level 1 used the blunt end of a basic hammer handle. Level 4 training used handles shaved to points, sharp enough to draw blood. Training bouts were usually conducted in 5 one-minute rounds, with a 30-second recovery period between them. Stripped down to jeans and bare chests, we entered the training corridor. Hathoda, standing in the entrance to referee the session, handed us one sharpened handle each. The space was tight, with only a few centimeters of movement possible to left or right. The aim was to teach men how to fight in close quarters, surrounded by enemies. The end of the padded corridor was blocked off. The way in was the only way out. Andrew held his sharpened handle in the underhand grip, as if he was holding the hilt of a sword. I held mine with the blade downward, and adopted a boxer's stance. Hathoda nodded to check that we were ready, glanced at the stopwatch hanging around his neck, and gave the signal. "Begin." Andrew rushed at me, trying for a surprise early strike. It was an easy sidestep. He stumbled past me, and I gave him a shove that sent him into Hathoda at the open end of the corridor. A young gangster watching from behind the master began to laugh, but the master silenced him. Andrew spun around, and stepped toward me more cautiously. I closed the gap between us quickly, and we exchanged a flurry of jabs, thrusts and counter moves. For a moment we were locked in a tight clinch, heads knocking together. Using some main strength, I shoved Andrew off balance, and he lurched backward into the closed end of the corridor to regain his footing. Attacking again, Andrew feinted jabs, lunging at me. Each time I arched my back, pulling out of range, and slapped at his face with my free left hand. Several of the young gangsters training in the gym had gathered near the entrance to the corridor to watch. They laughed with each slap, infuriating Andrew. He was a full member of the Sanjay Company Council, and the position, if not the man, demanded respect. "Shut the fuck up," Andrew screamed at the onlookers. They fell silent at once. Andrew glared at me, his teeth clenched on the hatred he felt for me. His shoulders arched around the anger pumping outward from his heart. The muscles stiffened in his arms, and he began to shiver with the strain of suppressing his rage. It hurt him not to win. He thought he was good with a knife, and I was making him realize that he wasn't. I should have let him win. It would have cost me nothing. And he was my boss, in a sense. But I couldn't do it. There's a corner of contempt we reserve for those who hate us, when we've done them no wrong. Those who resent us without cause, and revile us without reason. Andrew was corralled into that corner of my disdain as surely as he was trapped in the dead end of the training corridor. And contempt almost always conquers caution. He lunged. I swung around, avoiding the blow, and brought my pointed handle down into his back, between the shoulder blades. 3 points. Hathoda called. Andrew lashed out with his handle, swinging round to face me. He was off balance again, and a sweep of my foot brought him down beside me. Landing heavily on top of him, I jabbed the hammer handle into his chest and kidneys. 6 more points. Hathoda called out. And stop. Time to rest. I stepped back from Andrew. Ignoring Hathoda's command, he stood and rushed at me, jabbing with his wooden blade. Stop. Hathoda shouted. Rest period. Andrew pressed on, slashing at me, trying to draw blood. Against the rules of training, he was trying to stab me in the throat and the face. I parried and protected myself, stepping further into the dead-end corridor. Countering with my fists and handle, I struck back at him through every opening. Within seconds our hands and forearms were bleeding. Strikes against our chests and shoulders sent thin streams of blood down our bodies. We bounced off the padded walls and into one another, fists and handles flashing, breathing hard and fast as our feet began to slip on the stone floor, until the wrestling struggle sent us both to the ground. Luckier in the fall, I closed an arm around Andrew's neck, locking him in a chokehold. His back was to my chest. As he tried to wriggle free, I wrapped my legs around his thighs, holding him immobile. He thrashed around, making a slither on the slippery stone, but my grip on his throat was solid, and he couldn't shake me off or twist himself free. "Do you quit? Fuck you," he spluttered. A voice spoke from a place of ancient instinct. "This is a wolf in a trap. If you let it go, sooner or later, it'll come back." "Lin," a different voice said. "Lin, brother. Let him go." It was Abdullah. The strength drained from my arms and legs, and I let Andrew slide away from me, onto his side. He gasped, choking and coughing, as Hathoda and several young gangsters crowded into the corridor to assist him. Abdullah reached out and pulled me to my feet. Breathing hard, I followed him to the rows of hooks where I'd left my things. "Salam alaikum," I greeted him. "Where the fuck did you come from?" "Wa alaikum salam. From heaven, it seems, and just in time." "Heaven? It would certainly have been hell, if you had finished him, Lin. They would have sent someone like me to kill you for it." I gathered my shirt, knives, money and watch. In the entrance to the gym I used a wet towel to wipe down my face, chest and back. Strapping on the knives, I threw the shirt over my shoulders and nodded to Abdullah. "Let us ride, my brother," he said softly, "and clear our minds." Andrew De Silva approached me, stopping 2 paces away. "This isn't over," he said. I stepped in close and whispered, so that no one else could hear. "You know what, Andy, there's a lane at the back of this gym. Let's get it over with, right now. Just nod your head, and we'll get it done. No witnesses. Just us. Nod your head, big mouth." I leaned back to look at his face. He didn't move or speak. I leaned in again. "I didn't think so. And now we both know. So back the fuck off, and leave me alone." I gathered my things and left the gym with Abdullah, knowing that it was a foolish thing to humiliate Andrew Da Silva, even privately. A wolf had escaped. A wolf that would probably return when the moon was bad enough. Chapter 19. We rode together in silence to Leopold's. Breaking with the discipline that usually kept him out of any place that served alcohol, Abdullah parked his bike next to mine and walked inside with me. We found Didier at his usual table near the small northern door, facing the two wide entrance arches, showing the busy causeway. "Lynn," he cried as we approached. "I was so alone here. And drinking alone is like making love alone, don't you think so?" "Don't take me there, Didier," I said. "You are an unordained priest of denied pleasures, my friend," he laughed. He gave me a hug, shook hands with Abdullah, and called for the waiter. "Beer, 2 glasses, and a pomegranate juice for our Iranian friend. No ice. Hurry." "Oh, yes sir, I'll rush, and give myself a heart attack just to serve you," Sweetie growled, slouching away. He was on my list of top 5 waiters, and I knew some good ones. He ran the black market franchise in goods that moved through one door at Leopold's and went out the other, without the owners knowing. He took franchise fees from every store on the street, hustled a couple of pimps, and ran a small betting ring. And somehow, he drove the whole thing on nothing more than surliness and pessimism. Didier, Abdullah and I sat side by side with our backs to the wall, watching the wide bar and the crowded street beyond. "So, how are you, Abdullah?" Didier asked. "It has been too long since I've seen your fearsome, handsome face." "Alhamdulillah," Abdullah replied, using the expression that meant thanks and praise to God. "And how goes it with you?" "I never complain," Didier sighed. "It is one of my sterling qualities, as the English say. Mind you, if I did complain, I could be a master of the complaining arts." "So," Abdullah frowned, "it means, you are well?" "Yes, my friend," Didier smiled. "I am well." The drinks arrived. Sweetie slammed the beers in front of us, but carefully wiped every trace of moisture from Abdullah's glass of juice, placing it in front of him with a generous portion of paper napkins to the side. As Sweetie backed away from Abdullah, he bowed, slightly, with each backward step, as if he were leaving the tomb of a saint. Didier's mouth wrinkled with irritation. He caught my eye, and I laughed, spluttering beer foam from the top of my glass. "Really, Lynn, these people are insupportable. I sit here every day and every night, year after year. I have urinated rivers in the lavatories here, and subjected myself to food so miserable, for a Frenchman, that you cannot imagine, and all in the cause of a dedicated, and I think it not too immodest to say, magnificent, decadence. Me, they treat like a tourist. Abdullah comes only once in a year, and they are dying of love for him. It is infuriating. In the years that you have been here," Abdullah said, sipping his fresh juice, "they have come to know the limit of your tolerance. They do not know the limit of what I will do. That is the only difference. And if you stopped coming here, Didier," I added, "they'd miss you more than anyone else in the place." Didier smiled, mollified, and reached for his glass. "Well, you are right, of course, Lynn. I have been told, more than once, that I have an unforgettable character. Let us make a toast. To those who will weep, when we are gone. May they laugh instead," I said, clinking glasses with him. As I sipped my beer, a street tout named Saleh flopped into a chair across from me, knocking Abdullah's glass, and spilling juice on the table. "What a fucking idiot that foreign guy is," he said. "Stand up," Abdullah said. "What? Stand up, or I will break your arms." Saleh looked at Didier and me. Didier flapped his fingers at him, suggesting that he stand. Saleh looked at Abdullah again, and slowly stood. "Who are you?" Abdullah demanded. "Saleh, boss," Saleh answered nervously. "My name is Saleh. Are you a Muslim?" "Yes, boss." "Is this how a Muslim greets people?" "What? If you say what again, I will break your arms." "Sorry, boss." "Salam alaikum. My name is Saleh." "Wa alaikum salam," Abdullah replied. "What is your business here?" But he wanted to say what again, and I hoped he wouldn't. "Tell him, Saleh," I said. Okay, I've got this camera," he said, putting an expensive camera on the table. "I do not understand," Abdullah frowned. "We are sitting here to take refreshment. Why do you tell us this?" "He wants to sell it, Abdullah," I said. "Where did you get it, Saleh?" From those fucking idiot backpackers behind me, he said. The two skinny blonde guys. I was hoping you'd want to buy it, Lynn. I need money quick, you see. I do not see, Abdullah said. He cheated the backpackers out of their camera, and wants to cash in here, I said. They totally fell for my story, he said. Fucking idiots. If you swear again in my company, Abdullah said, I will throw you into the traffic. Saleh, like any street guy in the same circumstances, wanted to escape. He reached out to take the camera, but Abdullah raised a forbidding finger. Leave it there, he said, and Saleh withdrew his hand. By what right do you disturb the peace of other men with your commerce? Our right? Saleh stammered, mystified. It's okay, I said. People come up to me with business all the time, Abdullah. It is unacceptable, he grumbled. How can you do business with men like this, who have no respect or honor? Honor? Saleh mumbled. See, Saleh, it's like this, I said. You see backpackers as victims, ripe for victiming, but we don't see them that way. We see them as emissaries of empathy. What? Abdullah grabbed his wrist. I'm sorry, boss. I didn't mean to say it. Abdullah released him. What's the furthest you've been from Kalaba in your life, Saleh? I went to see Taj Mahal at Agra once, he said. That's far. Who went with you? My wife. Just your wife? No, Lynn Baba, my wife's sister also, and my parents, and my cousin brother and his wife, and all the children. See, Saleh, those guys sitting over there, they've got more guts than you have. They put their world on their backs, go into wild places alone, and sleep under the protection of people they only met a few hours before. They're just backpackers, man. Meat on the hoof. The Buddha was a backpacker, traveling around with what he carried. Jesus was a backpacker, lost to the world for years in traveling. We're all backpackers, Saleh. We come in with nothing, carry our stuff for a while, and go out with nothing. And when you kill the backpacker's happiness, you kill mine. I'm a businessman, he mumbled. How much did you pay them, Saleh? I can't tell you that. Saleh demurred, his face dissolving in sly. But I can say that it wasn't more than 20%. I'll take 25, if you've got it. Abdullah seized him by the wrist again. I knew the grip. It started out bad, and got worse. Are you refusing to tell the truth? Abdullah demanded. He turned to me. Is this how you do your business, Lynn brother? With untruthful men? I will give you this man's tongue, in your hand. My tongue? Saleh squeaked. I have been told, Didier recollected, that a certain loathsome woman, named Madame Jo, uses a human tongue as her powder puff. Saleh pulled his hand free and ran, leaving the camera. There was a pause, while we hummed the incident in silence. Please, Abdullah, I said after a while, don't cut out his tongue. Something more lenient? No, let it go. I always say, Didier observed, if you can't say something nice about someone, rob him and shoot him. Sage words, Abdullah mused. Sage words? It is self-evident, Lynn, Didier said. Abdullah nodded agreement. Just because you can't find something nice to say about someone? Certainly, Lynn. I mean, if you cannot find even one nice thing to say about a man, he must be an absolute swine. And all of us, who have experience of life, know that sooner or later, an absolute swine will cause you grief, or regret, or both. It is simply a prudent precaution to beat and rob negative people, before they beat and rob you. Self-defense, it seems to me. If these waiters knew you as we do, Didier, Abdullah said, they would treat you with more respect. That is undoubtedly true, Didier concurred. The more one knows Didier, the more one loves and respects Didier. I stood, leaving my glass. But, you're not going? Didier protested. I just came in to give you something. I've gotta get home, and get change. We're going out to dinner tonight, with Ranjit and Carla. I unsnapped the stainless steel bracelet from my wrist, and slid the watch off over my hand. For a moment I felt the little clench of regret in losing something that I'd wanted too much. I handed the watch to Didier. He examined it, turning it over to read the text on the back, and then held it to his ear, listening to the click-whir of the mechanism. But, it is a fine watch. Didier gasped. A beautiful instrument. Is it really for me? Sure, it is. Try it on. Didier snapped the bracelet shut on his wrist, and turned his hand up and down, left and right, to admire the watch. It suits you, I said, standing to leave. You coming, Abdullah? In fact, my brother, there is a beautiful woman, sitting in the corner, Abdullah said gravely, his eyes fixed to mine. She has been staring at me for the last 15 minutes. I noticed. I think I will remain here with Didier for some time. Waiter, Didier called out quickly. Another pomegranate juice. No ice.